Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. I'm your host, Byron, and with me is...
Byron. What the fuck? Okay,
I just wanted to troll you.
You threw me for a loop.
Let's get into it.
I'm Byron. Okay. A note, I am using a different mic this time, so if I sound worse, blame that. Had issues with the other mic. Hopefully we'll get that fixed soon, but yeah. So let's get started. We got quite a few topics today. First topic.
Okay, so
is a big one.
Covered on Thursday that we found out is Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming to PC on the Epic Game Store as an exclusive.
Oh,
that's pretty huge news. Personally, I'm looking forward to the mods that come out with KH3.
If it's anything like Skyrim mods, it's gonna be nuts.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be absolutely nuts. Yeah. So I think it's really interesting that Square Enix is releasing it on the Epic Game Store versus like Steam.
Yeah, because you would think, oh, Steam. Nah, Epic Games probably was like Scrooge McDuck. Here's your money.
Yeah, just money under the table. Like, come to us, baby.
Yeah, so all the games will be coming. Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix. Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue. Kingdom Hearts 3 plus the Remind DLC. And Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, a.k.a. Kingdom Hearts Mom Edition.
So, I saw a lot of, not really controversy, but a little bit of backlash over the pricing of the game.
Oh, yeah.
In particular, I think 2.8 and KH3 definitely drew some ire from people. But all in all, I still think it's fantastic that the series is coming to PC.
Yeah.
It's a shame that it's an Epic Store exclusive. Yeah. I would like to have seen it come to Steam as well.
Yeah.
But you can't win them all.
Nope, you can't win them all. But yeah, so this came out of nowhere.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of thought Kingdom Hearts was kind of that series that was just doomed to stay on console. Like, just seeing a PC release is really shocking. I'd argue it's probably some of the most shocking news this week. So
yeah, it was like when Persona 4 Golden came to PC.
Oh yeah, I wonder if, seeing the crazy success of Persona 4 Golden is one of the inspirations for why they decided to put it on PC.
I could definitely see that factoring in.
Really interesting, but
yeah,
I kind of feel like Kingdom Hearts is a little bit of a different animal. So
yeah, it's definitely a different animal. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, so we'll see in that regard. So let's move on to the next announcement. I think this announcement was made a bit earlier than Kingdom Hearts 3. No, it was made after.
Yes, and this one Crash 4. Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. It released a month before the next generation consoles on the PS4 and Xbox One, which kind of led it to drown. But now it's coming to everywhere else. So there was a trailer put out, and Crash 4 will be coming to PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series consoles, and the Switch on March 12th. It'll be coming to PC later this year on Battle.net.
Yep. Oh boy, lots to unpack there.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Battle.net.
Let's talk about Battle.net. Byron. Let's talk about Battle.net.
Yeah. For those who don't know,
Battle.net is the Activision, store/service. It's always online.
Yes.
So that's gonna be a tough pill to swallow for a lot of those fans of Crash that wanted to play on PC.
Yeah. Including myself.
So that's really unfortunate, but let's get into the positive with the Crash 4's re-release.
It'll give it a new chance.
The release didn't do terribly well on PS4, so I think this is like a second breath of life for this game. Primarily because it was competing with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X.
Absolutely. Like, this released, my take, this game should have been delayed to March 12th. IMO. This game should have been delayed to March 12th so that it could have released on everything. Now, apparently this PC release is going to come later, which, what the fuck? Why is it coming later? But whatever. I am still of the opinion the game should have been delayed to March 12th to release on everything, because the PS4 and Xbox One release was timed very poorly. Very, very poorly. And something else is that it's cheaper on Switch. It's cheaper on the fucking Switch, which is an oddity. Because normally, there's the Switch tax. On games.
Okay, yeah, so I noticed that it was like, what, $40 on Switch versus 60 on all the other platforms?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. And the really cool thing about this Switch port of the game is they're not sacrificing any fidelity for it whatsoever. So instead of, just releasing a blurry kind of mess that they usually release when it comes to these games, they are kind of redoing, the graphics and the models a bit. So it's emulating a cell shading style that you normally see from some of Nintendo's, games on the platform.
Yeah.
And I think that's really impressive because that means it's still going to run at 1080p, 60k FPS. Well, it's not going to be 1080p. It's probably going to be like 720 or some shit like that. But
900p.
Regardless, the game is still going to look visually impressive while still running at 60 FPS. And I think, considering all that work that they're putting into doing that, on top of a $40 price tag for it, means that they're really banking on this game's success on the Switch, which they should, because it was the trilogy, the Insane trilogy, was also very successful. And I feel like Crash is like a series that resonates very well with Nintendo fans.
Oh, absolutely. It's like it's a cartoony mascot platformer. Why wouldn't it do well on Nintendo platforms where the main mascot of the console is a cartoony platformer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think overall the news is fantastic. It does suck that the PC release is a Battle.net exclusive.
Yeah.
But I think this will mean only good things overall for Crash.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of concerns of whether or not this would be the end of the series once again, because the initial release kind of flopped.
Oh yeah, and this also makes you think, why didn't they wait until March 12th to release on all the platforms?
Well, I'll play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
For the most part. I think because they had the game, in a playable, polished state, they wanted to release it as soon as possible for the holiday season.
I get
that, there's the talk that it was competing with the previous generation, or I mean the new generation.
Yeah, the new generation of consoles. Yeah,
I do believe that. I do believe that Crash is going to be much more successful this time around. I actually think it's less that the PS5 and Xbox Series X came out, so much as the game wasn't on Switch. And I think, as I said, I do believe with Nintendo fans in particular, Crash sees the most success. So
I could definitely see Crash succeeding more on Switch. The Insane trilogy did insanely well on Switch.
Oh my god, kill me.
So there's no reason this should. I'd be shocked if it didn't do well on Switch.
Yeah, I'd be shocked as well, especially with all the extra effort they're putting in, plus the $40 price tag. I'd almost guarantee, at minimum, it's selling like 2 million copies.
And also, I think this is the first game in the 4 years that the Switch is out that a game doesn't have the Switch text.
Yeah, actually.
It's
It
got
kind
the
of makes me wonder, why would not just Activision but Nintendo charge this game at a lower price? It's almost like they're trying to get fans interested in getting this game.
yeah.
There's a lot of speculation that this Switch port coming out in March could lead to a certain character also getting into Smash Brothers.
Slade, don't
There's a
don't
lot of
tug on my heartstrings,
speculation
man.
involving amiibo waves and this and that, especially the one coming in March. That
Don't
we could see a certain character come to
don't
Smash.
tug at my heartstrings, man.
Don't do that.
Don't
give
do
me
that.
hope.
Don't bring that evil. Don't bring that on me. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how Crash does on the next generation, and especially on the Switch. I think Switch and PC are going to be the platforms to watch for. Switch to see how well it does. Battle.net to see how awful it does.
Yeah, because I said, forcing the game to be in an always online state is just really unfortunate. And I feel like that's not going to swing well with PC fans. I think I have Battle.net just to play, like, I have a Call of Duty or something on there that I don't even look at or play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But imagine if there was a single-player experience I want to play on there and my internet went out. Well, looks like I'm not playing that game anymore.
Yeah, even if your internet goes out for a microsecond, it's done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, like, overall, it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate.
It's great news for everybody that's not a PC player. That's not a Steam player. There are some people who do use Battle.net, so who knows? Maybe this will increase Battle.net usage. Who knows?
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our most contentious news of the week. Not really contentious in the nature of the news, but where Byron and I kind of disagree a little bit.
Alrighty, so
E3 2021, it's going to be a thing this year.
Yes, it is. So first noted by Video Game Chronicles and then corroborated by IGN, E3 is officially pushing forward with a digital 2021 event. So, yeah, E3's back.
Yeah,
I
think personally this is a great thing because last year you could definitely tell that E3 kind of dropped off. Well, I mean, not just dropped off; it fucking disappeared. You could tell that the summer of games didn't necessarily bring in the media attention and the hype that you usually get with video games. So the summer didn't see any really huge major announcements for anything. And that's especially considering when you have the new consoles with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X coming out.
Well.
So I think E3 coming back is absolutely great. I think it's the biggest video game event of the entire year.
Oh, absolutely it is.
I didn't see the summer of games filling those shoes.
I will say though, there was one game announcement that came out of that, and we literally just talked about it. Crash 4 was announced at Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, that's true, but that's like one individual announcement, and not only that, you could tell that the Summer of Games didn't really have the impact that E3 did. Especially considering Crash 4 actually flopped. So
well, that could have flopped for multitude of reasons, but we already discussed why.
You can definitely tell that Crash 4 didn't get the media attention that they were hoping for.
No. But yes, and alongside the fact that E3 is coming back, another event is coming back. As Slade apparently calls it, the Summer of Games, the Summer Game Fest.
Summer Games Festival. Yeah. Summer of Games.
It's returning with new. The account first tweeted out New Year, new colors, and as you can see, instead of the green and yellow of last year, we have this aqua blue, purple, and pink theme, that retro wave theme. But yeah. Summer Game Fest is also coming back again. And I know, Slade, me, and a lot of people didn't like how the event was last year in terms of length and stuff.
Yeah, so I saw Jeff Keighley's tweet about making it more condensed.
Yeah. which is encouraging. Very encouraging.
I think this year's going to be really interesting for the Summer Games Festival, considering E3 is making its return and whatnot. So I wonder whether it's a case scenario where they're directly competing with E3 for, that June time slot or whatever, or if E3 does their thing in June, and then maybe in July and August you see the Summer Games Festival kind of do their own thing. I think for the Summer Games Festival will be successful this year, because really with last year and the pandemic and absolutely nothing else going on, there should have been absolutely zero excuse to why it couldn't have been successful. I think people just kind of watched it, didn't see anything interesting, and got bored. I think when you stretch over 3 months of video game announcements, people just lose interest.
I will say there are some factors, though, that did play into the fact that the Summer Games Fest didn't do that well. They didn't have much time to plan last year's event.
Yeah, that is true. They kind of just slapped it together as quickly as they could.
Yeah, because it was really, in the first couple of months.
Than like a normal video game news cycle. So
and
if it's more condensed this year, I think they're going to ultimately be more successful. But my question is, how much is it condensed? Because
and this is where we disagree.
Byron, if I'm not mistaken, you were telling me the other day that you thought they would condense it down to a month.
I think a month is perfect if you do like take a couple of days of the week to have announcements like, hey, these days each week for the next month are going to have announcements like all day. Or they could just kind of do what they did last year, but pack it into a month instead. And I think that could work out well.
And I'm actually of disagreement with that. I think what Byron says is most likely what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they should condense it down even further to 2 weeks. Because I think even a month is a long time to try to draw people's attention away from whatever's going on in their world and whatnot. And I think not only that, we also have to consider how many of those major publishers are probably going to make their announcements at E3 instead. And this is where Byron and I disagreed the most. Yes. I understand that the ESA has lost a lot of
yeah. The ESA has, obviously, if you all remember, I think it was last year, because E3 obviously did not happen last year due to the pandemic. Some influencers, YouTubers, and games media info were leaked because somebody didn't do their job and didn't protect the page. So, there's obviously that loss of interest, and then, people have been game companies have been pulling out of E3 each year and just either doing their own thing or just we're going to go somewhere else, I guess, or do it some other time of the year.
Yeah, but the only reason why I'm adamant that at the very least Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo are going to make the majority of their announcement at E3 is because it's been the largest event of the year for them in terms of announcing things, both to consumers as well as their retail investors.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that changing, especially with how poorly the Summer Games Festival did. And once again, I'm giving you that they had very little time to plan it and whatnot.
Yeah, and how were they going to
feel like a stretched out month-long event isn't going to draw the media attention that the weekly event that E3 is. So
I could see that, but also got to factor in something. Will game publishers and studios have to pay to get into either of these events? We don't know. We don't know that. I assume so.
You have that money to pay in is worth it, considering the viewing audience for E3 is huge. So you're getting your stuff out there in front of everybody. So
you're getting
your
money's worth.
We can agree to disagree, but I just don't see a world where these major publishers are like, yeah, we're going to take our 20 to 30 minute presentation and we're going to put it with the Summer Games Fest instead of E3.
I don't know,
I don't know, that's just my take.
I don't know, leaking people's information can do some things. It's like, I don't know. Maybe some companies are just they're not gonna brand their events with either.
That's also possible. Maybe they just drop a trailer in the middle like the summer or something.
Or like,
well, Nintendo's kind of been forgoing directs and just been doing Twitter announcements for nearly everything nowadays. So could be right. You absolutely could be right.
It's, you know what? Nintendo's one of those names. I could see like not participating with either. As nuts as that sounds. And because you remember when people were like, "Oh, Nintendo, you're nuts for not doing like a stage presentation," and look what happened. Everybody tried to get on the direct train, huh?
Oh yeah, it's weird that Nintendo's kind of abandoning their direct format, considering everybody else is tripping over themselves to try and copy it.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe Nintendo will have the broken clock right twice a day thing and be an innovator and just not go with either. Sony?
Yeah, I think that's really weird, though. Yeah. I honestly, like, the thing is with the Twitter announcements and whatnot, I think they work to an extent, but I feel like these video games that they release things, because I think it's cheaper to release things on Twitter as well, obviously.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
But unless people are like directly following Nintendo, they're not going to get those news unless they're advertising them, putting them on television or people's phone apps or something.
Well,
ultimately, I think companies are going to be more successful having a platform to advertise things on.
Well, usually when gamers talk about a game, it does trend on Twitter, and Nintendo obviously like pays Twitter to run ads, because I see Nintendo ads all the time on my Twitter timeline.
Oh, absolutely. So
like, Microsoft, I think they might also pull a Nintendo. They have their own theater they could do their own presentation at, which they have done the past few years. They haven't technically been connected to E3, but they just happen to own a theater that's literally across the street from where E3 usually is at the LA Convention Center.
I think they considered themselves part of the event for the most part.
I could.
With the theater.
Sony, I could probably see going with one of them. I don't know which they would go with, but I think they could go with. I think weird prediction. I think Microsoft goes with one of the events. Sony goes with the other. How weird would that be?
That would be strange, but it would also make a lot of sense considering it's like, well, we're butting heads and we're competing. They had this time slot, we had this time slot. But I also think a large part of the new console cycle is they're kind of keeping tabs on each other. So when somebody announces something, the other's like, oh, we're following up the very next week with something. Yeah. Straight up out of the gun. So it's just kind of like that hyper-competitive cycle you see at the beginning of every console generation that's released.
I do think like the indies will definitely lean more towards the Summer Games Fest.
Yeah, primarily because it'll also be more affordable and whatnot.
Yeah, and like
honestly, I felt like indie games didn't really have much of a platform to stand on with E3 anyway.
Yeah.
So
there were a lot of indie presentations at the Summer Games Fest. So if you liked indie games last year, that was like the place to be.
Absolutely.
For indie game announcements. And I think that's going to hold true this year. Because like with E3 normally, like, like your Activisions, your Ubisofts, your EAs, your Nintendos, Sony, Microsofts, all of them are announcing stuff, and like your indie games get like drowned out.
That's true. So hopefully the Summer Games Fest and E3 can coexist in some way, shape, or form.
I think they could.
For indies and the other one's a platform for the major studios.
Yeah, I think at least one major studio has a show at the Summer Games Fest.
Yeah.
That doesn't go to E3. I don't know who that would be. And I think obviously Nintendo is going to be that wild card. Like they're just.
And for all we know, the Summer Games Fest, or not Summer Games, E3 could get basically none of the major publishers.
Yeah, that's a timeline that could happen. Yeah,
that's a legitimate thing that could happen. So,
yeah, and then Summer Games Fest becomes the new E3. As weird as that sounds. The new E3.
Yeah, so that's going to be it for today, everyone.
Yeah, bit of a shorter episode,
this has been Slade.
And Byron. If you enjoyed the video, like it down below. And if you're watching this on Sunday, Slade will be going live on twitch.tv/DG_Slade. So go enjoy that. And I'll be streaming on my birthday on Wednesday. Twitch.tv/the1_Byron. So yeah, we will see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.